Street epistemology. It's a brilliant tool, an invitation to think critically, to question, to reflect. It digs into what we believe, peels back the layers, and exposes the roots of our convictions. But there's another dimension we can explore, a deeper way to connect and understand. Enter compassionate epistemology. This isn't about questioning beliefs, it's about understanding the strategies behind those beliefs. It's about recognizing that every conviction, every worldview, and there is a connected strategy, a way we try to meet our needs. And if we want to truly engage, truly connect, we need to go beyond the surface and inquire about the needs and strategies. Because beliefs don't exist in a vacuum, they're tied to our desire for safety, autonomy, connection, purpose. Universal needs that drive every decision we make. Compassionate epistemology asks us to dive into the deeper layer, to understand not just what someone believes, but why they believe it, what they are trying to achieve, and what they are trying to meet. This is where the real work begins. It's not enough just to identify the belief. We need to explore the strategy. Is it effective? Is it fulfilling that need in the best possible way? Or is there another approach, another path that could serve them better, more completely, more compassionately? Compassionate epistemology invites us to reflect on those strategies with empathy. It challenges us to understand every strategy, no matter how flawed it might seem, in an attempt to meet a real, valid need. And by understanding that, we can help uncover new strategies, ones that might meet those needs more fully, more peacefully, and more humanely. Imagine the power of this approach. Not necessarily changing what someone believes, but helping them find better ways to achieve their goals. Not about winning a debate or proving a point. It's about collaboration. It's about helping the other person find the best paths to meet our shared needs. What is compassionate epistemology? Compassionate epistemology, abbreviated CE, is a practice of first understanding underlying motivations with empathy, then curiously exploring the quality of the strategies we use to achieve our goals. And specifically with this particular workshop, I'm going to be concentrating on normative claim examples. Some examples include everyone should be vegan, abortion should be legal, illegal. We need to implement the death penalty. Everyone deserves a second chance. More border security is what's best for our country. Everyone should have the right to own a gun. More strict gun laws should be implemented. And just as kind of a disclaimer, none of these are necessarily my views or the views of CE. It's just examples that I came up with from just kind of off the top of my head that I thought were good examples of normative claims, and each one can kind of inverse is also a normative claim. Like if you were to add not in front of it. Traffic light system. So a green light, this is just kind of a metaphor. So the green light would be your conversation partner is relaxed and shows no indication of stress. So that's green means go. Go for it. If your conversation partner is comfortable with the conversation, obviously you can go ahead and proceed, and there's not any concern for pumping the brakes at this moment. However, the yellow light is any noticeable level of discomfort, distress, suffering, or complaint. If this does occur, you want to concentrate more on actively listening with empathy and exploring that discomfort. You want to concentrate on that discomfort. You don't want to necessarily cause more discomfort. So it's really important to pay attention to your conversation partner. Something that you don't really, I don't want to cause harm. And I assume that anybody who wants to do compassionate epistemology wouldn't want to cause harm either. So that's why this is something that is important to pay attention to. Lastly, red light. So shouting, aggressive behavior, personal attacks, or physical signs like clenched fists or tears. Do not challenge your conversation partner's perspective. Ask if they would like to end the interaction or exit the conversation. There are certain techniques you could use to proceed. However, if you're not familiar with those, it's probably best to exit the conversation or change the subject and not proceed. Red, stop. Right. Avoid judgments. When you're doing CE, you want to avoid any judgments. A judgment is the practice of evaluating or labeling others in a way that implies that they are right or wrong, good or bad, or that they should or shouldn't be a certain way. Within the framework of CE, you should avoid just judgments or phrases that imply judgments. And I have some examples for you. So a subtle judgment might be, that's an interesting idea, but it's not really practical. And you can rephrase that to, how do you see this idea playing out in real world situations? So you're asking them to explain, why it's practical. And then, hey, maybe it's something that you didn't think of and it actually is practical. Or you can talk about the practicality after you ask them, what, after they explain why they think that it's practical. Condescending curiosity can be a judgment. Why do you think that's a good idea? Now, this one, if you say it with the wrong inflection, it's definitely a judge. I mean, either way, I think technically it's a judgment. If you say it with a negative inflection, it sounds really bad. If you say it with a more positive inflection, it may not come off. They might not hear a judgment. Like, what do you think? Why do you think that's a good idea? Right? That might sound okay. Why do you think that's a good idea? Probably not. But either way, you can avoid that potential of your conversation partner hearing a judgment by asking, what makes this idea appealing or valuable to you? And that way, they likely will not hear a judgment if you phrase it that way. Comparative judgment. Compared to other ideas, this one doesn't hold much weight. They're saying, hey, it's a bad idea, basically. You can avoid the judgment by saying, how do you weigh this idea against others you've encountered? Insincere agreement. I agree, I can see where you're coming from, but, and then that's really where the judgment is after that. But this way is better, but I think this strategy is much more appealing. You can avoid it by saying, I'm curious about your reasoning. Can we dive deeper into your perspective? The first step in CE, or I guess there's not really a first step as in 1, 2, 3. However, you kind of jump around a little bit. However, clarifying perspective, that is generally the first thing that you'll want to do. So to clarify the perspective, you can repeat back a charitable summary of your conversation partner's words, perspective. Ask them if your summary was accurate, and that is really important to do. If you repeat back what they're saying, you definitely want to inform them that that's what you're doing, and you want to make sure that it's accurate. You want to be on the same page. If you're not on the same page, you're going to likely talk past each other. That kind of defeats the purpose. So an example would be like if you're talking to someone who's a vegan activist, for example, you might repeat back, you would like to see all animal products made illegal? Is that accurate? And then what they say. Some other techniques, some other conversational tools or psychology tools, I guess you could say, call this either active listening or looping for understanding. So it's kind of a FYI there. What is a universal need? So this is an important term to define and kind of get out of the way so you kind of understand the rest of the steps here. So universal need is a fundamental human requirement or desire that motivates our feelings and actions. Needs are universal and represent essential aspects of life that everyone seeks to fulfill. They are distinct from specific strategies or methods used to meet them. While needs are universal and shared by all humans, strategies are the individualized ways we seek to satisfy those needs. Examples of universal needs, and this is not necessarily an exhaustive list. Some lists are different than the others. Some of them have categories and break them down into other categories, and then ultimately the needs. This is just a list. Safety, freedom, autonomy, acceptance, play, purpose, creativity, community, identity, and connection for this particular list of examples. Determine underlying need. So something that's really important in CE is determining what that need is, determine the ultimate motivation of their claim. One of the best questions to ask is, why is this important to you? A lot of times people will respond with their need. They might not be explicit about, they won't say, well, the reason this is important to me is because I want autonomy. They're probably not going to respond in that, those terms. But they might say, I want control of my body. I want to be in control of my body. Things like that. Pay attention to what feelings they might be telling you. An example is, it's so annoying when people do that. That might indicate frustration. And then you can ask, what might be behind this feeling? And then once you ask that question, they might tell you what that need is, of course, in normalized terms. And then you can ask, are you wanting insert need? Question mark. And a lot of people might be thinking, you can't just make that assumption. Well, you can. People, if you're trying to ask about a need, a value, whatever you want to call it, those words a lot of people use interchangeably. People like it when you ask them about that. It sounds counterintuitive, but that actually does build connection rather than detract from connection. So yeah, you can take a guess. It has to be charitable. You can't just say, well, is that, and then just throw some random thing out there. That would be silly. But if you take an educated guess, usually people will respond. Usually that will build connection, and it won't detract from that connection. Why would you want to determine the underlying need? Strategies are driven by needs. We form strategies based on the prioritization of our needs. Every action or decision we make is intended to fulfill a particular need, whether it's safety, autonomy, community, or something else. You want them to encourage them to reflect on that need. What makes this insert need or value so important? So what makes autonomy so important? Why is that so important to you? And another question you can ask is, do others also want this? What would someone else think about autonomy? Right? Value prioritization. You can ask, imagine someone who disagrees with you. Why is this subject so important to them? So you're trying to have them think about somebody who disagrees with them and determine, or at least maybe not determine, maybe that's too strict of a word. Maybe just come up with ideas about what that need might be for someone who disagrees with them. And I think that's something that's really, really valuable to ponder about, their opposition, what the other person thinks, and why they think that, why they could think that potentially. Do you value, insert third party need, whatever the other need that they thought the other person would have? Do you value that just like they do? Why do you value this need important, or why do you have your need higher than whatever the other person's need was? Maybe if I actually come up with an example here, it will be a better way to explain this. So how about I used the example of like gun control. Some people would like stricter laws on guns, other people would like less strict guns on laws. So imagine we're talking to someone who wants more strict laws on guns, and they might prioritize safety, right? They want everyone to be safe, including themselves, maybe their family. And safety is very, very important to them. Then maybe you're talking to them and you say, imagine someone who disagrees with you. Why is the subject important to them? And they might say, well, maybe they value freedom. Maybe freedom is really, really important to them. Then the question would go, do you value freedom just like they do? And they might say yes, or maybe they say no. And then you can ask, why do you value safety higher than freedom? And then you see what they say, continue the conversation. What is a strategy? A strategy is specific actions, plans, or methods that one chooses to meet a particular need. Strategies are the tangible ways we attempt to fulfill our needs. While needs are universal and shared by all humans, strategies are the individualized ways we seek to satisfy those needs. So it's the way we try to fulfill our needs, the way we try to get that freedom, the way we try to get that safety. Examples of strategies. A need for a community. Joining a flat earth social media group might be a way to fulfill need for a community. Going to church. Safety. Purchasing a firearm to keep in the home. Buying a home security system. Another one might be advocating for stricter gun laws. That might also go under safety. It's just a different strategy to achieve that safety. Autonomy, advocating for abortion laws, advocating for anti-vaccine laws. Determine strategy used. Ask your conversation partner how they are meeting their need. What are you currently doing to get autonomy? What are you currently doing to get freedom? What are you, insert the need in there. Reflect on these strategies. You can use Socratic style questioning, outsider questions, or search for alternatives, and I'll go. Socratic style questions. What is the best way to ensure autonomy? What is a drawback to your current strategy? Are there any potential drawbacks going on here? Any negatives? Any side effects that are with using this strategy? Outsider questions. How do others respond to your strategy? What solutions are available that ensure all parties are satisfied? How have others reached the same goal in the past? Search for alternatives. Are there any alternative strategies to meeting your goal? Why is this a less ideal approach? Okay, no questions from the audience so far? Nobody wants to come up on stage? Nothing? Making sure? Cool. Reflect on different perspectives. For someone who may disagree with you, what is their perspective? So this is trying to have them put on the shoes, excuse the metaphor, of someone who disagrees with them. What led them to this perspective? What are they wanting? How would someone achieve this goal in the other person? What is a strategy that could fulfill both of your goals? I love that question. That is basically asking, how can we work together to solve this problem? You could ask that too. That's a good question. And in conclusion, that's what compassionate epistemology is. If we start having more conversations, like how I outlined in this presentation, hope that maybe we can start working together instead of against each other. Perhaps maybe we can even change the world.